You know what, if I get a good shot to get by him, I will. If I don't have a good shot, I'll just stay where I'm at. But I'm not going to risk knocking him down. And
Sure.
I lost a lot of respect for him.
Good question. I've got one favourite circuit. We've raced pretty much all the circuits. A lot of them are disappearing now, like we've said. They don't go on Mons anymore. Places like Zelvag have all been chopped up. There's Hockenheim's been castrated, basically. The long fast bit's gone.
Salzburg or Spa. You know, I like those places just because
Both scary places.
So super fast and so super scary. And you know, we only raced them for a few years until like 91 or 92. I think I liked them more because a lot of the other guys didn't. You know, it's kind of like the rain. Everybody's like, oh shit, it's raining, we got to go out. I was like, man, that's the almighty equalizer. You know, my bike's not fast enough. We're competitive in the wet, especially early on. As far as tracks that I really like the layout of and that I've had a lot of success at, it's either Suzuka or Donington. Would be my two favorite places to race for sure.
You raced in an era when the bikes were perceived as being almost impossible to ride unless you were sort of superhuman, and sure enough, the people at the limit did crash them a lot. How difficult were they to ride near the limit? Did you feel safe on them at any point when things were going well? I'm guessing you did.
You know, when the bike was set up, when I say it's close to 100%, I don't think I ever rode a bike that was 100% perfect. But when I rode that bike that was at least 95%, yeah, absolutely. It's like things happen in slow motion, and you're thinking, wow, you go out for warm up, old tires, full tank of fuel, and you're breaking the, you know, running right at what you qualified at, thinking, oh man, this is going to be a good day. You pull in, you tell the guys, don't do anything to that motorcycle. Don't put gas in it and put some new tires on it, but don't touch anything. The only problem with that is of the 100 and I think almost 10 Grand Prix that I rode, I can count those bikes on one hand. So it's always, you know, there are 3 of them, I think, maybe 4. But it's one of those things that nobody's ever got a bike that's perfect, and it's who can ride it the best, and who can compensate for the lack of setup or the problems that we're having with pushing the front or the lack of grip and the drive grip in the rear. Now, you run into that problem and the guy says, well, you know, we just didn't have the right map for that. So there isn't a whole lot the rider can do these days, at least back in 80s and 90s, up until at least late 90s, before electronics became such a big part of it. You know, it really was down to the rider. And, you know, I think you hear riders talk about we as a team, we as a team, we as a team, whereas, you know, back in the day, we were all I. You know, I won this race, I did. Actually, the bike had to be set up by the team, but, you know, I really felt like it was me against the other guy. And
you feel privileged because of that?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. You know, to have just gotten back from the Suzuka 8-hour and having to ride something there, getting the opportunity to ride something there that's electronic as it is. You know, it's kind of hard to really appreciate a fast lap. You know, you watch one of my teammates on the Yosh bike do a 206.7, you think, wow, that's 3 seconds faster than I've ever been around this place. How do you do that? You just got to have that much more confidence and that much more faith in the electronics. And what I found hard riding a bike that's so electronic is you spend so much time on old tires that when you do finally get a new set of tires, you're so used to altering your line to try and get around people to do things when you got a clean lap, when you're the only one on the track, you almost don't remember what the perfect line around the place is. And you know, the electronics help you get away with that a little bit more. You don't have to be as consistent and so spot on every corner, everything exactly perfect every lap. So yeah, it was an honor to have raced all the guys that I got to race, to ride at some of the tracks that no longer are on the GP schedule, and every last minute of it, like I said before, was a ton of fun.
What do you think to the modern MotoGP era? For me, the thing I can't get my head around is split classes. There's different rules for whatever sort of system you go into, and it's all a little bit difficult, even for somebody who's involved in it, to understand it fully.
And I don't think I understand it fully. You know, the difference in classes in MotoGP. You know, the Moto2, Moto3, I think I understand that a little bit. And that's some of the best racing there is out there right now. And credit to MotoGP, it probably wouldn't be quite so boring if there wasn't somebody named Marquez in it, but, you know, we get that every now and then, and I think instead of looking at it as boring racing, we got to look at it as, wow, you know, he really is good. The bike's good, the team's good, the rider's good. He's riding with so much confidence right now. He plays with him for until about half distance, and then he says, "Okay, gotta go. See ya."
For me, yeah, that's. I mean, he's making it boring by being as good as he is. However, you know, CRT that kind of came and then went, and then it's in a complete state of flux for me. That you're almost bound to look back to the days when you had 125, 250, 500s. You knew the set of rules. You knew exactly what everybody had to deal with, and so you could understand what you were watching.
Yeah, they should put carburetors back on them and take all the electronics away. Find a tire manufacturer that can build a tire to make the race, and just let them go. You know, I think the riders will figure out how to ride the bikes. They'll figure out how to control them. 230, 240 horsepower, whatever they've got now, however much torque they got. You know, it's a much more forgiving motorcycle to ride now, especially with the electronics. But if they could take the electronics off and you know, just let the riders come back and be the deciding factor in what wins the race. I think Marquez is winning because he is the best rider. But yeah, I mean, I think it would be a better show. I think you'd have 6 or 8 guys scrapping at the front. I think some young kids would be up there. I think some of the veterans would be up there. And you know, right now it's anything but that.
Agreed. Another question from the floor.
Did Suzuki let you keep any bikes you raced on?
Some of the ones that I didn't bend up and break, yeah. No, the only one that I have any real significance is my '93 championship bike. And so I have to say thanks to Suzuki because they took the bike back at the end of the year. I say thanks, okay, I'm not going to say thanks. They took it back at the end of the year, and they rebuilt the engine. They put the gearbox in it and the settings, exact settings. We ran some different size brake rotors, some different width rims. Of course, transmission was different every race. Suspension, did everything as it was the last Grand Prix I won in 1993, which was the Dutch TT. But they also took the opportunity to take the little, it did have one little electronic device in it that could detune it. And when I got it home, I tried to get it running, and it was like it had a dead exhaust valve battery. Anyway, I talked to one of the engineers. He said, no, they just put a chip in it so that it won't make full power. He says, but guess what I got? So I actually have my '93 bike with full power. So yeah, and it's got a special place in the house that I'm remodeling. It's hopefully going to be closer to being done when I get home.
Do you ride it, or do you rely on? I mean, there is Kevin Schwantz bikes out there. What were you riding at the weekend at Donington?
Steve Whitham owns quite a collection of RGVs, and it was one of his bikes. It's a '94 vintage bike. Whether it's actually one of mine or one of Barros's, I'm not sure.
I bet you got 34 on it.
It did have the right number on it.
Do you get to ride your own, or is that just a...
Mine has been ridden once, I think in '07 at Indianapolis, when the first time they ran in Indianapolis for a MotoGP race. One of the guys who worked on our team, Hamish Jamison, came over and spent probably a month or so getting the bike up and running. It had some things that needed to be repaired and rebuilt on it from when we tried to get it running. There had a little bit of water damage in some of the mag cases.
Yeah, a lot of magnesium, isn't there? Which doesn't age well.
It doesn't. And Steve Whitham yesterday, when I went to ride in the wet, he goes, okay, it's okay right now, but if it ever starts raining, get in because we don't want this thing getting wet.
Yeah, the magnesium corrodes like mad with, obviously it's for lightness, but it corrodes like mad with any kind of moisture. If you leave, and RGVs and RGs were always built with a lot of my crankcases, etc. People ran them, did a parade lap, and if they don't get to them and dry everything out, and I mean properly dry it out, even just a little drop in the water pump, it just burns its way through. It completely destroys them. So.
The one example is that where the water pump pushes the water up, the little elbow that sits there, if you don't pull the actual metal piece off and drain everything out of the water pump, that whole piece on the bottom was just completely corroded.
Yeah.
You just pull the hose off, well, it leaves water right up to the top of that. So, yeah, there's a lot of damage that can happen with just water.
When you get on one of your old bikes that's still running properly, now, the bike that you rode at the weekend, I was instructing on a Suzuki track day at Silverstone last week, and I actually saw one of Wigan's mechanics running it in. He just said, look, I want a few laps to make sure when we give it Kevin, it's actually going to work properly. and it looked really sharp. You can tell with the two-stroke generally how the exhaust is coming out and how it sounds, and it sounded sharp. Does it surprise you how still quick they are? Because these quick things.
Yeah, absolutely. And the one time I got to ride my bike in America was I rode it in Barber, where we had a riding school. And I'd been around Barber on MD 250s, and I've been around Barber on 600s and 1000s, and unbelievable how a race bike of that era, how well it goes over hills, how well it handles, how stiff it is, and how comfortable you can get on them really quickly. And at Donington the other day, I joked around with the guys when I got in. I said, this thing must remember how to get around this place, because it almost did it on its own. Up under where the bridge used to be, where it's no longer, where I went out through the grass a couple times when I was here for the match races. Black lines there, Coppice down the back straightaway. It's running sharp enough that even when you go under where the Dunlop Bridge used to be, it still wants to wheelie. Not quite out of control like it used to, but it's pretty close. It's probably not dead set on the jetting, but...
So what you're talking about with that 94 bike, 170 brake?
Yeah, probably 160.
And weighing 135 kilos?
130, yeah.
See, that's still power to weight more than a superbike is now with 200 horsepower.
And then in the beginning, in 90, they changed the weight to 130 kilos. When we first rode them in 88, 80, well, I guess 86, 87, 88, 89, only 115 kilos. So if you had one that was 130 or 140 horsepower back then, it only weighed 115 kilos. It was...
a rascal.
It was, yeah, not real forgiving.
The question.
I noticed the motorcycle news you wrote the new Suzuki. The motorcycle news you wrote the new Suzuki, that the team's bringing out next year. What was your opinion on that?
I haven't ridden a MotoGP bike in so long that I really don't know what one's supposed to be like, but I had been riding an American Superbike at the track in Austin at Coda for half a day up to that point. Twice the bike of what just a standard AMA Superbike is. But I guess the scary part about it is, I actually went faster on that in 10 laps than I went in 2 days on my Superbike. And I worked pretty hard at it on my Superbike. But, the scary part is looking at pictures. Every photo I see, the front wheel's about 6, 8, 10 inches in the air. I don't ever remember wheeling. It's that electronic these days. It's got so many controls on it, spin, wheelie, everything, that you come off the corner and you go grab a handful of throttle and it goes, it comes out and you think, oh, that wasn't bad. You see a photo and it's this high in the air, which I think gives you the opportunity to, I guess maybe if you rode one all the time, you get to understand that. But my fear with that is you come off a corner, and if you're not just going down a big long straightaway, and then at the end you get to let the thing sit on the front and then grab the brakes, try and make a quick transition from on the gas to on the brakes, you might grab a handful of brake while the front wheel's still in the air. I think that scenario when that sets down is catastrophic at best. So fun bike to ride. Only thing I could do with it was put it in the wrong part of the racetrack. Otherwise, it was really, really user friendly, I thought. Which I'm not sure that's what a bike needs to be a good race bike.
Do you have any problem riding it the way that you're meant to ride them now and letting the electronics sort it out, or does that go against everything? Because if you'd done that with your bikes back in the day, you'd have been.
Yeah, every time at Suzuka, last year when I rode, this year when I rode, it's that right hand that knows when you get up into a corner and the bike starts moving, that you really better not do much more with that right hand, because that means hurt. That means we're going to probably be okay. And with the electronics, you can get into a corner, and I'll use the Dunlop curve at Suzuka as an example. Drive off in that corner, following somebody in front of me that I know has been really fast around Suzuka. We get in, we get up the hill, it flattens out, and my bike starts moving a little bit. Well, that's all I can do. It's moving. It's moving the back enough that it's moving the front a little bit, and I can't go any faster than that. Whereas if you just go ahead and get past that, let the computer take over, it actually sorts itself out, sticks itself back down in the back a little bit better, makes the front turn, doesn't keep the bike unbalanced. It does everything it's supposed to, but absolutely, the hardest thing that I've ever had to do in my entire life is make that right hand move past that point where this is going to mean I get to go to the moon.
That's a casualty immediately. Another question for Kevin.
tell us the funny high car story?
Hang on, wait till you get the mic, then we can all hear.
Could you tell us the funniest high car story, please?
I witnessed a couple of them, I'll tell mine in a minute.
You know, I don't have any good ones for me, but you know, that's probably the funniest one that I heard about, and I forget where I was. Maybe I was still at the hotel. Yeah, we were at Donington testing, and of course, Gary Taylor used to always get some Daily Mirror sponsorship or whatever magazine or newspaper it was, and so a bunch of the journalists had come out and they wanted to watch us test. Well, it was raining, so we weren't going to do any testing. Well, somebody comes up with a great idea. Put him in the red car, let Barrows take him around. Second lap, old hairpin, it's on its roof. Yeah, that's...
Well, I remember...
No, and everybody had their seatbelts on. That's pretty ironic, too.
I don't know what year, but you were involved. Every year at the British Grand Prix, they used to have a superbike support race, but the two-stroke guys, which all GPs were two-strokes, every class at the time, were really scared of the four-stroke boys going out before the full GP schedule had occurred, because they figured they were going to dump a lot of oil, which we did occasionally. So we practiced a little bit of Friday, nothing on Saturday, and then we went out at 6 o'clock on Sunday night when the GP boys had finished. And it was just, really, we only entered that race to get the free tickets to get in and watch the Grand Prix, to be honest. But we raced, and then because I knew Kevin a little bit from Macau, and we got invited to a big drink up at one of the motorhomes, don't know whose, and then somebody at about midnight, everybody's drunk, decided to get the iCars out. And only the problem for me is, it was my own car, wasn't it, a car? So I'm in my own car, and I didn't want to lose out, so I wanted to get involved, and somebody decided that one of the garages, he could pull the door off and get through the garages onto the track, down the pit lane. And I don't know how, but I ended up through first in my own car. I know we went down Donington, obviously. I went rattling down pit lane. There's none of the circuit lights on, but I've got my car lights on. I never knew they put a chain across the bottom of the pit lane. And flipping it in the front of my car, scooped over, scratched every single panel, including the roof. And because everybody thought it was an iCar, it's dead funny. And I thought, I'm going to have to fucking pay for that. And I kind of sculled off with my tail between my legs, figuring I've got to fix his car, but it was still going off. And then the police came, and the police came with a motorway, sort of jam sandwich type police car, figured what was going on, got a couple of the guys, and the last I saw of the whole incident, I'm kind of scuttling off, trying to just disappear, knowing it's costing me a fortune, and there was Wayne Rainey in the back of the police car, drunk, having left his iCar on the circuit somewhere, and he's leaning forward through the gap between the two policemen that were sat there trying to get some information about what had happened and who were doing what, and he's pulling in the gear lever going, let's go, let's go! And I thought, I cannot afford to hang about with these idiots. And I went home.
Yeah, well, the funnier part of that story was it turned into lap times. I think we'd gotten one car out on the track. So we decided we'll stand at start finish and start checking lap times. And I did a lap, Wayne did a lap, I think Bubba Schobert might have been there, forget who else, McKenzie was there. I know McKenzie was there because I think he's the end of the story. And Rob Mack, and so we're all pretty close on lap times, and Rob Mack gets in the car, we go, he's got some local knowledge, he may be the tough one to beat. And so we're standing out from the boxes because there's no place to stand safely on the track, so we stand out in the grass. Well, of course, Rob Mack comes down the back straightaway under the Dunlop Bridge, and what does he do? He just checks right, doesn't he? He knows, stay matted, keep the thing flat out, and I'll come blasting through this. What he didn't realize was that he was going to drift across the track and out into the grass, and the 5 or 6 of us that were there watching had to dive for our lives to not be. We could have all gotten killed that instant by Rob Mack. Anyway, he comes back around. McKenzie gets in it. McKenzie tries to do the same thing. And what Neil McKenzie didn't realize, I guess, that Rob Mack did was how long the tire barrier was. And when Neil thought, well, I've got to trim it a bit tighter than Rob, because I've seen what happens if you do it wrong, you end up in the grass. So he trimmed it a bit tighter, and when we didn't see him for a while, we went looking, and he was actually stuck, had the hire car stuck on top of the stack of tires and couldn't get it off. So that was, I think, when we called it a night, or maybe that's when the police showed up at the same time, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I couldn't afford all that. It's my own car. And we got another question.
You just stick up your hand, and I'll try and find you with this microphone. So has everybody got a question they'd like to ask Kevin?
If not, I've got some more. Speak up, you got to let everybody know the question.
Well, I signed her boyfriend's tank. Of course.
I wonder who he is. Right, how much riding do you do now? I know you run a school.
School's on hiatus right now. We've given all our Hondas and Suzukis back, and you know, the past 12 months have been focused towards going to Suzuka and competing in the 8-hour. Unfortunately, my teammate crashed early on and I never got to ride the bike in the race. But you know, everybody said, well, that just means you'll come back next year. Well, my mindset going this year was that I wasn't ever going to do it because I did just turn 50 this year. So right now my mind says no, but the more I think about it, the more opportunity that I get, the more we talk about it. You know, who knows, Suzuka's maybe still on the calendar for next year. But the school was, we started it in '01, we ran it until last year. And without any manufacturer support in the industry in America, I think they said took a 40% hit. If you want to just hear basic numbers and not percentages, Suzuki used to sell 60,000 GSXRs a year in the United States. To date, they barely sell 20. So they're nowhere back to where they need to be as far as numbers go. And I think until they get back closer to those numbers, the support for training programs in schools and stuff like mine probably isn't going to exist. But I still have the ability, still have the capability, have the knowledge, have the curriculum, have leathers, have helmets, boots, gloves. I can, if somebody comes to Texas and wants to go riding, we can find motorcycles and take you riding, that's for sure.
Rob Mack used to tell me a story about he went riding with you and you'd take him down, I think, yeah, I think actually with Jim as well. I think it was some of your old buddies, and you'll all go riding down to Baja and you stopped at the same places, you knew people en route that you could bunk up with and all the rest of it. And he said that you might have been on a, well, you'd borrowed him, he reckoned you'd borrowed him a substandard bike so he couldn't keep up, and then his gearbox seized and you had to free off with a rock and all that. Go on, talk.
Yeah, well,
is he all made up?
but he always thought that even when we were teammates, he had a less bike than me.
It was 15 stone, I mean, that's the problem.
That was the only thing, yeah, there definitely wasn't less of him than there was of me. But yeah, we invited him to come to Baja, California. We used to go down, me and my dad and a bunch of his buddies. We used to go down, ride 4 or 5 days down, and come back 4 or 5 days, had places to stop, places to stay. The funny part of the story is I wasn't able to leave when everybody was going to leave, so I had testing or something to do somewhere. Anyway, when I came back, I landed in Los Angeles. Peter Clifford was going to come with us as well, and Peter happened to, I think, be at the Suzuki test that I was at or wherever I was at and whatever I was doing. So he and I got in a truck together, drove down to Baja, got on motorcycles that were there waiting for us, rode down to meet my dad and his buddies and Rob Mack, and I forget who all went, but we got down to this place where we stay called Mike's Sky Ranch, and we got there. We drove the truck all the way down. We didn't ride, we just drove the truck, and as we're driving down the road that's about 20 miles into Mike's Sky Ranch, start seeing snowfall. I'm like, man, I think Dad and Rob and all them were supposed to stay in the mountains tonight, kind of just out in the open. They weren't expecting snow. Anyway, the next morning we're sitting at Mike's thinking, man, they were supposed to be here pretty early this morning. I wonder where they're at. So, well, we'll just head out the road because they're definitely going to come in that road. So as we head out, just as we get to the pavement, they show up, and Rob Mack he's just about frozen. He says, your dad's trying to kill me. I'm never coming back down here again. And then as the ride went further on, he finally thawed out. And we did. We actually ran through an area where the 2 bikes he and I were riding didn't have enough fuel to go the whole distance. So we came up with this great idea. Turn yours off. I'll push you. I'll turn mine off. You can push me. We'll alternate. We won't use both of our tanks of fuel. That way maybe we'll make it to the next stop without having to, be pushed by somebody else. Little did we know that and I think they were Yamaha TT 350s. And what we didn't know was that unless the engine running, there's not anything splashing oil on the gears. The gearbox is locked up on both of them. So yeah, we had to find a way to free them up, and we managed to make it home. But that's kind of like every story that happens in Baja. kind of just day by day.
Yeah, I must admit, he told me that I was jealous. He made it sound like the best thing ever. No matter how cold he got with Jim, he said it was just the best riding holiday he'd ever.
It is. There used to be a bunch of really fun stuff.
Can you still do it now?
You can, but it's all turned into gravel roads, and it's not near the off-road experience that it used to be.
We're on up for a question. You must have a question. Yeah, somebody at the back. That's good because Ross has to do a bit of work now.
In your opinion, who was our best hope as a British rider for proper onslaught at MotoGP?
Did you get that? That's a bit of Derbyshire for you there, wasn't it?
When I raced, or up till
No,
current?
now he says what he's asking is, do you see a Brit coming through that can actually win MotoGPs? Careful.
I think Scott Redding.
I agree with you.
Yeah, I mean, Cal, we'll know next year. I mean, he'll be on a good bike next year, and we'll be able to see a little bit more of what Cal's all about then. But do I think Scott, if he continues on with the path that he's on, riding Hondas, and in 2016 we're going to all be a little bit closer because not everybody's going to have the experience that they have. Machines are going to be a bit more equal. Everybody's going to be on a different brand of tire. What that's yet to be. Has it been determined yet? I mean, they keep talking about Michelin, but I don't think it's actually.
It's not deal done, is it?
Yeah, it's not deal done. And Scott, as young as he is, he's been on that production-based bike. He's been the fastest guy just about every weekend. Nicky and him mix it up quite a bit, but I think Scott, if he continues to learn at the rate that he's learning at, I think Scott could win some Grand Prix.
He had quite an impressive weekend, I thought, as well. It was, second off of Marquez in pole, and...
Yeah, he made top 12, didn't he?
Yeah, good run. But yeah, I would agree with that. And I'll tell you something else about him. Have you met Scott? Do you know him? Cocky kid. When he was coming up through 125, yeah, he was a cocky lad. Hard work. I had to interview him loads of times, and I didn't like doing it. He obviously read a lot of press about himself and believed every word. But he changed completely. He must have grown up. I don't know what happened. But I had to go and interview him before Bike Show last year, NEC last year. 8 months ago. And we had to go to Spain to meet him. It just turned into a nice bloke. Very humble, and I asked him some questions where it would have been easy for him to be cocky and full of himself. Spot on. Absolutely spot on. Dead impressed with him. So yeah, Scott Redding, he'd do it for me as well.
Jamie, I think you have another question, 1 minute.
Bloody hell, yeah. Oh yeah.
Kevin, have you rode the new GP bike?
I did. I tested it right after the MotoGP race in Austin.
Competitive, yeah?
How would I know? Yeah, to me it feels like it should be, but I haven't ridden. I did last MotoGP bikes I rode was before they put 990s away in 06, end of 06. I got to ride Nicky Hayden's World Championship Honda. I got to ride Pedrosa's bike. Got to ride Rossi's bike. Got to ride the Kawasaki. Got to ride Vermeulen, Suzuki. I got to ride the whole gamut of them, and wasn't really that impressed with any of them. The thing that I had the most fun riding was I got to ride Lorenzo's 250, and a little 110 horsepower, 100 kilo, two-stroke 250 that just stopped and turned on a dime. That was the most fun thing that I had that day.
Do you think you'd have been a good 250 rider?
I did. And you said I had never ridden anything but a Suzuki. I rode a Ducati once, it broke my collarbone, and I rode a Honda 250 once at Laguna Seca in just an American Championship round, and I crashed it. So, yeah, I enjoyed riding a 250. I tested the Suzuki 250 in '92 when Wilco, Zeelenberg, and Harry Torrentegui rode it, and they were complaining about top speed, and we got to test it at Barcelona. And I got a really good drive through the last turn and drafted past the factory Honda of Carduce down the front straightaway, and everybody went, doesn't look like it's slow to me. So I really enjoyed riding a smaller bike. So yeah, I think I could have been okay. I'd have had to maybe cut some off my legs and arms a little bit to fit on one.
Into it, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Do you ever, often wonder, do you keep in touch with any of your old sparring partners? I know America's a big place,
Not really. I mean, I bump into Rainey whenever he either comes to Austin or if I go to Laguna or if we happen to be at a Grand Prix together. Otherwise, nobody talks to Lawson, not even his wife. I bump into doing every now and then. Actually, on my 50th birthday, Mick, I looked at my phone. I had to put my glasses on to make sure it read correctly. It was actually a text from Mick Doohan saying happy 50th. He says we made it halfway there, and I thought, we're not going to make it all the way to 100, are we? But, you know, and Beatty and I are still pretty good buddies. We talk. He's doing a big off-road adventure company now, traveling, doing off-road rides from, I wanted to go after Suzuka, but my mindset wasn't all that great after not getting to ride. He was doing one from East Coast to West Coast, and they were supposed to be about halfway across. But yeah, Beatty and I are probably the ones that stay in touch the most. Barrow, saw him a couple of years ago, went to Brazil to do a school, got to work in with his track day, and you know, Alex is still riding a lot and still as fast as he's ever been. So.
I know you used to come and see Rob Mack every time you're in the UK, generally.
I called him and I told him I was coming to Donington. I said, "You planning on coming?" He goes, "No." So I don't know. Of course, had lunch with the better half of the McKenzie family. Neil's up at Knock Hill today for a track day, so
yeah,
didn't get to see him, absolutely, and Taryn.
The question.
Who's the next young American to go?
Don't know. You know, I think we've got a bunch of really good kids. Remember when I talked earlier about somebody calling and ask you to ride something, you jump at the opportunity, whether it was a pogo stick or a decent bike? Yeah, I think they've all gotten to where if it's not the best bike there is on the grid, you know, it probably doesn't make sense to me to go ride it. I'm going to go over and not do well. Whereas, you know, I think it's just the opposite of that. If you take every opportunity that's presented to you, you're going to get on something and you're going to shine somewhere and somebody's going to see it. Just like the opportunity to go ride a 500 that Barry asked me to ride, to do whatever I did at Mallory Park. If not, who knows, I may have been an American Superbike racer my entire life, which wouldn't have been much fun. But, you know, you've got to, I think just as in any situation in life, you got to take a chance every now and then. And, you know, there's a few kids, there's a young kid, Nick McFadden, doing some dirt track, J.D. Beach, Jake Gagne, Benny Solis. You know, we're all Red Bull Rookies Cup kids when I coached for the series we had in 2008 in America. Do they have the ability? Yeah. Do they have the heart and the mindset to do it? Yeah. You know, until you get some kid in Europe that's, you know, left family, friends, everybody behind, whatever he's got to do to be here, it's really hard to tell what kind of character they really are. But yeah, I mean, I think we've got just as much speed as we've ever had in America as far as racers go. We just haven't got the right channel or the right avenue to get them to where we need to get them so they get recognized.
What's going wrong with used to be the strongest championship with the strongest riders?
You know, I think more than anything, and I'm just going to, the AMA took racing back in-house. They took it away from a pro racing board of directors, which I was on. But, you know, when they took it back in-house and started making all the rules themselves, instead of having it set between a bunch of different manufacturers and a bunch of people that knew something about racing, now they come up with their own ideas and do things that they think's right. You know, they've hired a few people that have worked with race teams that are doing a decent job, but I think there's just no respect there because so many of the manufacturers knew what it was like before, and that same group of guys is still there now, and the AMA's changing things, and they're not making rules that they're talking to the manufacturers about. They're not finding out what bikes you want to race and what classes you want to participate in and what is it that the manufacturers want from racing. Until we get manufacturer support back into the AMA series is just going to continue to dwindle.